Hello and welcome to this video about articulation scripts. It's a concept I've worked on for 2 years, but more like 17 years, because ever since I started writing music, this has been an issue. But this is the most advanced control of articulations or VSTs that you'll find, or at least right now. And I'll show you why through this video. But first, a little bit of history. So when I started writing film music 17 years ago, I pretty fast got into the more orchestral side of film music, and using orchestral libraries, I really fast figured out that you have to change articulations to get more realism. And that's a painful process. There's not a good system for it. If you've done it, you know what I'm talking about. I was in Logic and my approach ended being changing channels, because I could do that on my keyboard. But I was sending it through the environment window and doing then actual key switches instead of channels on those instruments that needed that. And I was also using the velocity to change other key switches. And at some point, Logic didn't process the notes that I needed, so I switched to Cubase. And that was better. It had expression maps, which was really cool, but another really big issue happened, which was it was super difficult to create new maps, like terrible to edit those that you had. They were very limited. And it was also pretty difficult to actually even change articulations of within a map or within a MIDI region or across regions. Things like, there was just not a good workflow. And I spent a lot of years trying to solve this with SoundFlow and TouchOSC and Lemur and a lot of software and Excel sheets. Terrible, honestly, and now I found Reaper 2 years ago, and within a very short time I made something that was better than anything out there, and that's what I'm about to share with you. So let's dive into the video. Okay, so when you download my Reaper pack, if you put in articulation, Saxman articulation, you will see these actions right now. And the first one we need to look at is script creator, because we need to create a script. And if we open that, we see this, and we need to name a map, so we actually need an instrument. So let's add the sine player here, and we take the Berlin Free Orchestra, and we can take whatever instrument. Let's just take the violins. And there's 4 articulations, so let's write Berlin Free Orchestra and then violins, like that. And there's 4 articulations. We can always add more later, but this is just it for now. And we write here spiccato, pizzicato, and tremolo. All right, so we have our articulation names. Now we need to add key switches, because you can see that they are controlled by key switches. So we could do that by adding note by clicking here or pressing Control N. And now I can tap. With tap, I can move through different areas of the thing, or I can also do that by holding down Control and navigating. And let's select all these, and then with Command 3 we make it chromatic, and then we write C0, and now you can see that they all got notes attached to the thing, and we can preview them by pressing this play button. So everything works as expected, and we haven't even added in an articulation script yet. We can also preview by pressing Control Command P, so able to go through and test like that. So now let's add a script by pressing Command P, and now we have the script and on the first slot on the instrument track. And then if I play here, and I can change the articulation. And if I close this window, I can actually also change the articulation here from this embedded UI. But there's obviously a much more clever way to change articulations, so let's get to that. Alright, so in this section I'm going to show you the different ways that I can change articulations with the script. So as you can see here, we have a background server which runs and sort of grabs whatever thing you have selected and finds the articulations. And then there's a keyboard trigger surface, a list overview surface, and then you can also use your browser, so you can do it on an iPad or tablet, whatever. But I've put these up here so you can see the articulation surface running and the list overview surface. But let's activate the key trigger surface and see what happens. So when I do that, I get this, which looks like my keyboard, and I can press on my keyboard, sustain. So all of a sudden my keyboard became my control surface. So that's pretty cool. Let's add a MIDI region, and now you see this thing opened up here. So I can use that as well to change notes. That is this articulation list overview surface. And if I add a note here, oh, that's out of the range. And then I can select here, add the notes, or like add different articulations, and we get this. And that's it. And if I move these around, then the articulation stays on them. So that's really cool, and you can even see up here what's changing. And you can see the notes have the articulation name, and this is something we can change. This is just like a shortcut for what you can do in here. So we can also show velocity handles, note names, etc. And in here I could also open up my keyboard trigger, and it passes through anything that are not actually an articulation. So I could say this is pizzicato, pizzicato, or spiccato, spiccato, and then sustain. And I go back like that. And I can of course select more notes at the same time and select all of them, change them to whatever I want. So, and if we go out here, I could also change it from out here. So what's going on here is that they can change from, I can have multiple regions, select them, and add articulations even out from the arrange window. Okay, so lastly, let's look at this remote control system that you can use on a tablet. So you need to add a web browser interface and then the articulation map surface. And then it looks like this, and I can use it for changing around as well. And let's open this up, and you can see if I select something, I can add, and it follows along with your articulations, and I can add new articulations. So that's also really neat. Okay, next up, let's make a more advanced articulation script. So here we have a contact, and let's find the emotional violin. And then I'll select the violin, emotional violin. So you can see that has a really long articulation list. So let's just take a screenshot of that, and I'll take that into ChatGPT because I'm lazy, and then I'll say, write each articulation, then that thing, and then the key switch. And that's probably gonna be enough for it to read the text. And I think it added a space. I don't think that's a problem. I think my script can handle that. So, but that looks quite all right. I'll select this, copy that, and then I go back here and I open up the articulation script. I'll add a new map, emotional violin, and let's just say that's like 20. And we need a key switch, so we add the node, and then here we say import clipboard, Command-Shift-V, and then we have our instrument and we can preview it, and you can see how it's already lining up. Okay, so now let's add this to the track, and we get a beautiful outline on the iPad. We should maybe call this something as well, emotional violin. I don't think the iPad updates there. And then if I open up here, you can see it's just sort of splattered around the whole keyboard area. So, and we can actually control that, how it would be laid out. So we can use the thing called keyboard triggers. And then we could say spiccato we want on C and then X. So that's like the short ones that we have furthest down. And then we just go like this. And then the détaché from Q like this. And you could actually spend a lot of time sort of designing instruments on your keyboard to be exactly where you want them. This is going to be 7, 8 trills at K and L. And let's add this. And now if we add open up here, you can see that it's using how I asked it to use the key trigger areas. Let's try something more crazy. One of the biggest things about this whole system is that we actually have per articulation delay. So we can change articulations here. So let's just start by saying all these are minus whatever 30. So that's probably gonna be, let's see here, we add that. And now let's just use the MIDI from before. Now that is played 30 milliseconds ahead of the beat. Oh yeah, and you can see here that it doesn't, recognize some of the articulations, because sustain and spiccato is not an articulation in this script. So let's just add straight, quarter, and then just keep tremolo. We could use trill, whole tone. Actually, I would like this to be a pizzicato. So now, maybe half tone. So, all right, let's say that we wanted the whole tone trill. It's a little, or the half tone, the trills, they're a bit slow. So let's delay them with 100 milliseconds, and then I'll just update the script. So now it's delaying it with 100, like that. So now we have two different maps, and you can see on the iPad screen here that it's changing when I change the track. But if I select a MIDI item on a track, it will follow that selection. So it has sort of an intelligent idea of where you're working. And if we open up here, you can see that it will also follow whatever instrument that you would be working on. So yeah, that's also really neat. Okay, so now I want to jump to one of the more difficult instruments to control, which is Cinematic Studio Strings. What's really interesting about this instrument is that if we have this expressive legato mode, a lot of things is going on. So the first thing is that when you press a note, it's a little delayed. It has like 100 millisecond delay because it needs to start the note. And then when I play the next note, depending on how hard I press, it will do a fast legato or medium legato speed, meaning how long the transition is, or a slow one, which is a lot of information. So we have something that works on velocity. So now I'm going to show you some of these filter options that will be needed in order to control this script. So let's just call this CSS test, and we add a couple of articulations, and then we just call this expressive legato, and we can call the next one staccato. This is just for demonstration. And then we would use position, like from where the notes are played, because we know the first note here would be a, as I said, it would be delayed with minus 100 milliseconds, or like it has to be played 100 milliseconds ahead. Okay, so that will already do that. We can, if we add here, we need to add, in order for the script to know that there's actually a legato, we need to add an articulation. So you can hear the first note is on, but the rest is not. So we need to add more layers or lanes to this articulation. So we add a filter lane. And actually, let's just add a couple more. So what we have is we have legato, and we know the slow legato, it's like around a third of a second, so minus 330 milliseconds. And if we just save this and add that to the script and play, we already have things playing normally, and it's probably because I'm playing all this in the lower area. Like if we compare to here. Yeah, so it's all playing the slow articulation. And if I did this a little faster, we have a problem, because actually the second note is playing just after. So it's delaying it, it's playing too early. So now we would have to do two that are legato, but it's actually filtered on the velocity. So the second speed of legato, like the medium speed, is 250, and we add a third one, which is a maybe minus 120. I can't remember what it is exactly. So that's also going to be legato. And then if the note is less than 64, so maximum of 64, it will play the slow legato. And if it's between, so let's say within 64, and that's 63, I'm not sure. And not sure either here, but maybe 100. And then if it's more than 100, it will be the fast transition. I should probably have looked in the manual. So a minimum of 101. Now we have filtered the articulation based on those different steps. And if we update this script, we get, you can see that it's playing it with 250 milliseconds. And if I went and made it fast, so minus 120 is actually too little. So let's say minus 180, and we update that. Let's see. So now I can actually have different tempos, and they will all be on the grid. we didn't get much in the fast one here at the end. So let's do that again. All playing perfectly in sync. All right, so now I want to show you a much more elaborate map that I've been working on. It's also for Cinematic Studio Strings, and you can see this is how it looks. We have the first articulation, which is legato, and then we have the different lanes, and you can see that there's multiple in the position that we worked on before. There's multiple legato positions, so it will use other filters to determine which properties should be sent out, like which mappings. So if the speed is a minimum between the last note and this note is a minimum of 230 milliseconds, it will play slow legato transitions. And because it has this velocity mapping, it will ensure that the maximum velocity will be 60, which ensures that it will play slow transitions. And then if it's playing faster, between these two values, it will fix the velocity to 80, which triggers the medium transitions, and then it will only delay it with minus 230. And then if it's playing fast, like less or equal to 179, it will make the velocity 120 and the delay minus 180. Okay, so let's just preview that. And if I made this double as fast, so that would be something like that, you can see that it's forcing the fast legato. But then we also have another legato, which is if the interval between the last note and this note is larger or equal than 30, that means more than an octave, then it will actually play, the instrument was only sampled 1 octave. So when you do that, it will play just a new note from the start. So that only has a delay of minus 100. So that's getting triggered here. There's no touching the velocity. And then the repeat, I've set to be a much higher delay value because I think that sounds better. So if we just changed a little bit in this phrase, now we have a big interval and we have a repeated note. Actually, let's have 2 repeated. Then we get this. And that would probably sound better if we played it half speed, just for the sake of it. So you can easily see how it's with the same MIDI information going through, like it's the same articulation, but it's adapting to what the MIDI is. We have a lot more things with the legato. We can force the first note, or like, so it's not gonna play any legato. So that sounds like that. And we could force the portamento. That's done by forcing the velocity to be 1. Let's try that. So that sounds like that. All right, there's a bunch more things to look at here. For instance, we have interval. This instrument, if we select trills down here, and I just bypass the articulation script, you see nothing happens when I play here, because I have to play 2 notes. And if I play a major interval or minor interval, it will play trills accordingly. But I prefer to just press 1 note and have pre-selected, is it major or minor? So now I've selected major and minor. So that's what this is doing. It's just adding an interval to the note pressed. And then lastly, you can see this lane called layers. That one, it's a pretty cool concept. So if we have this playing legato, this is right now the mute is off, which is the concertina. And if I press it on, you can see that it's long legato, mute on. Let's make it mute off. It's only changing that part of the text. So we could make this marcato and mute on, and let's make the last bit with legato transitions. So the layers kind of work independently, which means that you can make very advanced instruments. Like if you have a banjo instrument, you can say, well, whenever this layer is triggered, it's going to be the G string or the D string. So, but that's independent from the articulation, for instance. All right, I want to show you the instrument settings page, which is up here next to mappings. And here we can do a global transpose, we can force channels, we can do stuff with legato performance, and we can also, whenever we add a map, we can add key switches to the piano roll. We can also add CC names, that's a feature for later. And we can decide whether it uses PDC or we want to use track offset, which will automatically be set whenever you add a map to a track. And we also have these real-time articulation triggers. So you see here, whenever I play, it's real-time. And if I'm playing some notes with articulations on, it goes into delay, or like it's in articulation mode. Some instruments have this option where you can set a CC switch to a number, and then it will delay the notes, so sort of a playback version, and then you set it slow and it's reacting faster. This could be automatically set by, if it was like 40, then whenever you play real time it will set it to 0, and whenever you play back articulation it will set it to the max. But we can also set these in our own way. Others might use a note trigger. Okay, so that was a lot to cover. I'm sorry about the length of this video. There's some features that I'm still working on. There's some features I have in my head that I haven't started yet. For instance, I'm working on notation, so that's not available right away. Which the idea is you could put in a music XML sheet from your notation software, and the script will interpret that and make the instrument play really nicely with it. I'm gonna show a demo soon of it because it's really cool. And then we also have like live articulations. So instead of it being an articulation that's attached to the notes on your tablets, for instance, you can have like notes that you can trigger. Instead of trying to remember the notes on your keyboard, it will just be a button that will send out that note value. I'm also planning to have a lot more import options. So for instance, you could import a expression map from Cubase or articulation maps from Logic, maybe also Dorico. I see a lot of ways where this can sort of bridge the gap, but it also depends on the people that use it and what people will be needing. So I'm looking forward to hear from you, and I hope this video was enjoyable enough to watch. Bye.